That's
Yes. No.
okay. Okay. Let me now share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So I just want to give a summary from last week. What we learned in execution, and then we'll move to monitoring, controlling, and close out. Why is good execution critical to project success? And the answer, we talked about it quite a lot on Thursday. To successfully deliver projects to meet its desired goal and objectives. During the execution stage, you are implementing or you have learned, or you have put into your project management plan. So execution is the intercept of the phases and the knowledge areas, that integration of the different knowledge areas, whether it's your scope management, your project scope management, your schedule management, your budget management, your risk management, your stakeholders management, your resource management, communication management, all those 10 knowledge areas that we talked about. This is where the intercept is, and this is where you're executing your plan that you have to meet the project goal. So the common outputs include change requests. We talked a lot about that. Update to the project management plan and project documents. Remember, we talked about where you have change requests, your project scope, budget, or even schedule may have changed. So you go back and you revise your project management plan during the execution to reflect the change in scope, the change in budget, and the change in schedule, if it does have those components. Integration management, I think Boyega talked quite a bit about that on Monday. I also talked about it on Thursday. Integration management deliverable, work performance data, issue log, and lessons learned register. I think one of the things is you don't wait until the end of the project to start learning your lessons. You document it in real time. So that's where your issues log come in. Like if you're experiencing, I gave an example that one of the things that one of the issues I met on my project during execution was we found an old an old pipe on the ground that we had not done before. So lessons learned was, and we had done a survey, utility surveys in that area, but we did not do what they call the GPR, which is like a radar that really goes down to a camera that visualizes what is on the ground. So one of our lessons learned was when we are working on existing site, that's one of the things we would do. And, so you can update that. We talked about quality management, quality reports, test and evaluation, because during execution, you have to measure your success. You have to measure your performance. And it could be through inspections. We talked about the baker, that one of the way you can do your quality control is where you mix a big batch of cake batter. Maybe you want to bake a small portion first so that you make sure that it has the right amount of sugar and all those things that you're looking for in it. So instead of baking the whole batch, how are you going to test it? So you do that and you make sure that everything you're planning to is there. Resource management, physical resource assignment, project team assignments, resource calendar, and team performance assessment. So during monitoring and controlling, there are some times that not all your team members need to be there because maybe the phase of their work is completed. So this is where you have to kind of retire or move a project team to another resource. So if at the beginning, you needed them for, let's say, design, and their strength is design, and they've completed the design of the project, another team may be the one that oversees the quality and the implementation of it. So you have to be careful how you are managing your resources and not just having everyone on board. That's very important during execution. And performance team performance assessment. Again, who is performing on the team, who is delivering when they're supposed to, and how are they delivering on their assignment? You have to look at that. We talked a lot about communications management during execution, how critical it is to make sure that you have a good communication management plan in place. Because during execution, who do you report to when you have an issue on the project, real time? And what is your level of authority in terms of what do you have authorization for? If I see something on the site, for example, what is my authority level to be able to change it? Do I have the means to call my executive director because it is higher than my level? So these are all the things that you need to include in your communications management plan. The procurement management, again, it's time for implementation. This is the doing stage. You've gone out of the planning stage, you are now doing. And you're not doing everything by yourself. There are some things you perform by yourself, but there are a lot of third parties contract. What is your procurement management strategy, and how are you engaging those for the success of the project? Do you have the agreement that clearly states their deliverables? So, Dr. Charles, you're here. You want to add, because it was you and I on Thursday. If there's anything you want to add to that, I'm just using this as a summary before we move to monitoring and controlling.
No, I think you have covered it very well, Kunje. Thank you very much. One quick thing I just wanted to re-emphasize from last Thursday was when for example, I should talk about these different styles that we adopt or we use as project managers. I said, I don't like, it's not my personality to tell people what to do. However, I can be firm, I can be direct, and I can make sure that they understand exactly what their roles are. Now, I think that when we use that style, for me, it works. For some people, it may not work. So the military style of telling them might be something they do, but as a parent, I know that sometimes my children have different ways of doing things, and I have to adopt or adapt a different method to address each and every one of them. And so the same way one would do in project management, again, depending on who the person is, whether they are the boss or the overall person, or they are my peers, my colleagues who are delivering a certain aspect of the project, I have to adapt my style to make sure that that he delivers what we are trying to deliver. That's the only thing I wanted to add. But
and that's an important component of it. So thank you for adding that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for monitoring and controlling, we are going to focus on what is it to monitor and control? What does this phase even do? And why is it important for us to validate and control the scope? Remember, this is where we are acting, and discuss the tools and techniques to assist in cost control, explain the importance of validating and controlling scope. So these are, because during the project, now remember you have limited amount of money for this project. Is not you don't have all this money that you're going to spend on this project is limited. So during execution phase is where you spend the money. The monitoring and controlling is also, they're kind of intertwined. I know they have it as distinct phases, but they overlap, they intercept. There's intercept between monitoring and between execution and monitoring and controlling. Monitoring and controlling, you are monitoring and controlling what is being executed, the work that is being done. So they are not separate, they are intertwined, but it's a different approach, so to speak. As you're doing the work, you're checking for quality, you're checking for inspections, and you're doing all that. So that's what it is. Monitoring and controlling involves regularly measuring progress to ensure that the project is meeting its desired objectives and addressing current issues. The project manager and staff monitors progress against plans and take corrective action when necessary. So this phase is very important because you don't want to wait till the end to correct anything. You are correcting it as you go along. So let's say they are pouring, let's use the cake again. I use the example of the cake. You're baking the cake. You've mixed the batter. You know you're going to test it, right? By whether you dip your hand in it to test the sugar. That's monitoring and controlling, because you are checking to make sure that it meets the level of sweetness, whether it's even pouring the batter to see the consistency of it. That's also monitoring and controlling. And then baking that small sample for you to check if it meets what you're looking for is also quality control. And then you're measuring cups, measuring and weighing your ingredients is monitoring and controlling, because you are making sure that it is the right amount of ingredients and ratio. All right?
I guess maybe a practical example. So imagine the wedding, you've laid the plans, you're executing, you pay the caterer, you secure the venue. And let's say the wedding is a week away, just like the way we have a final case study. But then you don't just wait to the day of the wedding. It's like you're going to check the caterer, like, how much have you spent? Have you secured the rice? Send a sample. Also, you want to check the venue and make sure it's been readied according to your specifications. So you check, and then we'll get into more in detail. So let's say the budget is fixed, like $1 million or naira. Now, if you have to spend the 1 million naira on, maybe there's a big pothole in front of the location, you have to go fix that. But then you don't have enough money for the wedding or to pay the valet people or something like that. So you're still busy, you're doing work, but then you might not be able to have enough funds left for the actual deliverable. Maybe you didn't think about the parking and the valets and things like that. So you have to monitor where your money is being spent. I mean, you're still executing. So that's the importance of monitoring and control. Like, are you spending the time, resources that is getting you towards the actual deliverables? And are you getting closer? You don't want to wait to the day of to see is everything in plan. You want to see how your progress and making sure you're going in the right direction.
Thank you. And that's a good segue into the performance report. So let's stick with using the wedding plans, for example. How do you measure the status update? Where are you at specific time? So you know that the venue, for example, using the venue, which is you're going to, it's going to take 6 hours for them to decorate. Do you wait until the deadline to go and check it? Or do you go maybe after 1 hour to see the progress that they have made? Because if after 1 hour the vendor is not even there yet, you already know right there and then that making this work in 6 hours is not going to, it may not happen. Then this is where you can now influence, maybe call the vendor, or if they're running behind, this is where they can add more resources to make things go faster and better. So these are part of the things that you have to do during the performance report. The caterer now is such an important event. Are you just going to believe the caterer to say we've started cooking? Do you have an inspection component as part of your contract to say, I'm going to come and inspect to see that, yes, we have 6 bags of rice and 20 Ororo gallons or whatever. And during the cooking, are you going to also make sure that everything is being done, the plates, the cups and everything, it's as planned? So that's part of monitoring and controlling. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone?
No,
So
ma'am.
go ahead. Who has questions or comment? Okay. Is that clear? Okay. So we've been talking a lot about integration, how you are integrating all the other things. And We talked about change, that changes will occur. So integrated change control happens during monitoring and controlling. As you're seeing things that are not happening the way you think it should, this is where you now start to identify them, understand them, and then what you need to change to get the desired result. So it's almost like a corrective action, so to speak, but it is change. So objectives are as follows: influence the factors that cause changes to ensure that changes are beneficial. So when you get to the venue and you see that the tables are too close together, you can do a change right there to create more aisle space. And so you look at it, it's more beneficial because now there's more ease of egress. People can move around quickly. And then you also include it that, okay, we've moved more tables, and it could be as, you could even be removing 1 or 2 tables so that it's not so crowded. Then how has that occurred? So that's it's very simplified, but in more complex situations, that change can affect a whole lot more than just moving a table or moving a chair. It could delay the project, it could add cost to the project, and then you have to review review the impact to the schedule, cost, and even scope. Project management plan provides the baseline for identifying and controlling project changes. Remember, now you've signed up to a project scope, you've signed on to a project budget, a project schedule, and some level of quality. So during monitoring and controlling, this you're controlling the project scope in a way that you're validating it. You're also making sure that you're not going out. And then what are the deliverables based on your WBS? Remember, your WBS have identified the task that needs to be done in sequence, when it needs to be done. So how are you reviewing your WBS during your execution phase? Did the painter come and paint the walls? Has he finished? Is the carpenter now there? Is the flooring guy now there to lay the carpet or the tiles because the painting work has finished? So those sequence of activities is what you are monitoring to control. If you still have a wall that hasn't been painted, a significant portion of the wall that hasn't been painted during this execution phase, as you're monitoring the progress of the work, what do you now do? Do you now add more painters to it, knowing that if you delay 1 more day, it's going to affect the flooring person coming in? So these are all the things that you have to look at during monitoring and controlling. Do you guys have anything else to add? Gbega and Sir Charles? King Charles, no? Anything? Any comments from you guys? Are extremely quiet.
Actually, because I was eating. It's my lunchtime.
Oh, okay. It's your lunchtime in your, yeah.
And I don't want anyone to accuse me of not inviting them to lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think for all of us, especially those attending, this is where your scheduling, what your schedule looks like, is very critical, because you don't want to indiscriminately check in on what your control looks like. So, for example, I think using the case of the wedding, you have a DJ that's supposed to be playing on the wedding day, for example. Your schedule should include something like, at time A minus or time A plus Z, I should be talking to the DJ. And as you are looking at that, your schedule, it means that maybe 3 months before the party, you need to go get in touch with the DJ for the first time. 2 months to the party, get in touch with the DJ, make sure the DJ has gotten everything they need. And then maybe 2 weeks before the actual wedding, everything is all done. Otherwise, if you don't have all these things outlined in your schedule or in the WBS, because you have to identify which things have to be done before which, in other words, dependencies, you can just be spinning and spinning and spinning, because there's going to be many things that you need to track. Okay.
Thank you very much. And those are the things that you're tracking during monitoring and controlling. So scope creep, we've talked a whole lot about scope creep. Can anyone kind of summarize what we learned about scope creep, what it is and what we've learned about it? Anyone?
I can answer, but we should call somebody.
Yeah. So you're very good with calling people. So let's do this. Who can talk about scope creep, what it means, and what we've learned about it over this few weeks?
Maybe Bukar, Mr. Bukar Askira.
Yes.
Okay.
Tell us about scope creep.
Yes. In my understanding, scope creep is the gradual expansion of a project scope beyond its original boundaries, often resulting in increasing costs, delays, and complexity.
Thank you very much. Very good. King Charles is clapping. Any other comments before we move on?
I guess, Quilla, what's your understanding? Give us an example in your own words. Maybe
Oluwadolapo has her hand raised.
Okay.
So maybe we can take Oluwadolapo.
Oh, yeah, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Oluwadolapo.
Actually, a big question, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Earlier you mentioned change requests, and I know that you already explained scope creep before. We've actually learned a whole lot about it. That when the customer or the client suddenly adds more than the usual, than the actual scope that has been created for the project. But is change request and scope creep, are they the same, or is there a form of difference?
There's a difference. Because remember, when change request has come, you have gone to change your scope, right? You've gone to now revise your scope. But scope creep is the client comes, oh, add 50 people. You don't go back and change your scope. You still have your scope as 200 people, and you've just accommodated the client and his 50 requests. So you are doing it as a favor. Let's just go, okay, yeah, add 2 tables here. You don't go back to revise your scope statement that it's now 250, not 200. That's where scope creep is. When you keep adding changes to your project without documenting it, without reviewing its impact to the cost and the budget and the quality of the project, that's scope creep. Yeah.
Thank you,
Uncle Festus has his hand raised. I hope that answered your question. Boyega and King Charles, please feel free to chime in anything to that.
I guess maybe I'll give a practical business example. Imagine, let's say you're a contractor, let's say you're a painter or something, and you're going to paint somebody's house, and then the owner is a nice lady, and she says, please, can you help me move these heavy boxes? And maybe you say you're a nice person, like, okay, I'll do it for you. You go back to your painting, then she comes back, oh, I need to do this stuff in the room upstairs. Can you help me move that stuff? And you can't, I mean, maybe a one-time stuff, but imagine that you're there for the whole weekend and they're coming every 2 hours to give you additional work. That could be scope creep. And next thing you know it, maybe you spend 20, 30, 40% of your time doing other things that wasn't part of your original agreement. Now, if you're a prudent businessman, maybe the first time it comes out, oh, I would love to accommodate you. Let me just have my assistant send you a change request to include moving services, but I'll help you, but it will be drafted and I'll have it to you in the next one. So you have to anticipate maybe they're going to keep on asking you to do moving things. So you can just say, you know what, let's do a change order to include moving services so that you can be compensated for your time. But don't tell the client no, just say, I'd love to, let me get you a change order. Let's get a change order going on. That's the best way to approach it.
I don't know if Festus, looks like he put his hand down.
Yeah. I was just going to add, like, the wedding. I'm going to give out some information anyway. We are planning to have a big wedding at Dubai, and in our research, we plan for 750 people. So, however, during the planning process, we also the venue we got can accommodate up to 1,000, but we've planned for 750, anticipating that if there is a problem with the Scope Creek, Burna Boy and his group said they want some more. We won't have too much problem, but we already planned for 750, but we also have an extension to 1,000.
Okay. Yeah, I the only quick thing I just wanted to add is that usually, and I think it happens all the time, it becomes a scope creep if it affects your timeline, or it has impact on your timeline. Two, it also has impact on the budget. And definitely timeline, meaning schedule here, impact on the budget, and also affects your resources. That would be a quick way to test it, to see, oh, is this a scope creep or not? So in your case, Festus, if you are planning for 700 and somebody wants to put 300 more, absolutely. Even though the place can accommodate that number, you know your budget is going to be probably go out of whack. That's a lot of it's going to be, yeah, for what you are doing, wedding, yeah, that can be an issue. But if it was say like a product release, you can definitely say, well, this is out of scope for the current plan. Maybe we can add this feature or functionality after we complete this particular release. Otherwise, you run the risk of having a project that never gets completed. By the time you get to, when it's getting close to completion, the customers are no longer buying it because they're going to buy another. So yeah, anyway, what I'm saying is you have to test and see, is it going to affect your schedule? Is it going to affect the budget, or what about resources and those kind of things?
Yeah. Thank you for adding that. Because even if it doesn't, if you can still do it within the set time, is it no longer a scope creep? If, for example, I'm adding one more room to the house to be painted, so my original scope was paint 3 rooms, and like Vega was giving that example, the painter is doing such a good job. I now ask him paint one more room. Isn't that scope creep? Even if he has extra paint. So let's say, for example, he has extra paint and he has finished the work on time, right? He finished the work ahead of schedule. And I'll say, okay, just use this time and the remaining of this paint to paint this extra room. Would that be considered scope creep? I'm asking.
Well, oh, no, you're asking the class, no?
I'm asking, including,
that's a great question. That is, no, seriously, that's a great question.
So multi-dimensional. Whoever can get it. You actually, before you all answer, I'll say you have to, there's a question you have to ask Auntie. It's a simple question. We briefly touched about it, but Michael, we'd love to hear your answer.
Okay. Good evening from inside. I want to make a contribution. Right. I'll still consider it a scope creep, despite the fact that no additional resources, that there's the paint fee remains. So it's not like the budget will be affected. And it was also mentioned that it was finished timely, that's within schedule, which makes it not to be like scope creep. But to the contractor, the painter, is going to spend additional time. Maybe he's supposed to be back home that day. He will now have to stay for the time that it will take to complete that additional room. So to the contractor, I think it's a scope creep. Maybe to the client, he might not consider it so. But also, it will affect budget because that additional room must be paid. So it will still affect budget because he's not going to paint that additional room for free. And his own time, the contractor's time will be extended. So based on this, I'll say that it's still scope creep. Thank you.
Michael,
Thank
let
you
me ask
very
you a
much.
follow-up. Michael, just a quick follow-up question. All those things that you described, are they in a project management plan or are they in a contract agreement?
Should be in the project management plan.
So most of the stuff will be in the project management plan, but some of the stuff will be a contract between the project, between the owner and painter. And I guess if I was to answer the question is, what type of contract do you have? Do you have a lump sum, like just paint, like do you have a specific, like just paint 3 rooms? Or is it like a time and material? So if the owner said like, hey, I'm paying you for the time and material, and I'm paying you for 3 hours and 4 gallons of paint or whatever, and you finish something in 2 hours and you still have the paint, the owner can say, hey, it's 4 hours, I have 4 hours of your time, even though I thought it would be 2 or 3 rooms, I want you to do this extra room. Now, although your project management plan might have said 3 rooms or whatever, the owner could or could not, depending on the contract, is whether this is a scope creep or not. So just something to consider.
So that's on TNM.
Yes.
So that means you don't really have a fully defined scope. If the owner says, come into my house, I have 4 gallons of paint, finish painting it. So your scope is really, the scope of the project is finish using the 4 gallons of paint for my house. That's basically what it is in 3 hours. So anything outside of that is scope creep. Anyone else before we move on to the next slide? Anyone else? I think this would also help, in understanding what scope creep is. So you must validate your scope. And what does that mean? That means when something changes and there's addition, it has to be revised. And because the deliverable may have changed, you have to let the stakeholders know. This is where you go back to your project management plan or your agreement to make sure that you have revised the scope and everyone has been notified. Then they must also sign off on the deliverable. So it's not just like you've added this and then I've told you it's going to impact budget and schedule. You've just given them that verbal notification. You go back to the agreement and have your process of notifying people that scope revision. You will have the on the project management plan that I sent you for scope, there are dates where the change came in, you reviewed it, impact to budget, impact to schedule is stated there, and then there's a sign off on who is authorized to sign off on it. So that is very important because that becomes part of your acceptance criteria. Because at the end of the day, if your customer now says, who sent you? How did I send you? This is what we agreed to. I was just thinking it. I was not expecting you to do it, and you have now gone and done it. So you don't have any recourse. Damilare. Go ahead, Damilare.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Hey, ma'am, but in a situation whereby the client can see the remaining.
Can you speak up? Because I don't know, there's something with your audio, or is it my own old ears?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, ma'am?
A little bit better, but yes, speak up a little
bit.
Can you hear me now?
Aha, yes.
Yes, I said in a situation whereby client can see the remaining paint, because as a project manager, and I have a kind of a project like that, I shouldn't have go with all the paint. I should have a target of the paint that we finish the work, so that I will be able to tell them that, okay, the remaining one that you said I should do, maybe we have another plan for it, get another paint. But for me to carry all the paint to that place, and I have finished the one that I'm supposed to do. So for me to now take the remaining paint back to maybe my car and say I'm going back home, it will look somehow that, and the person can say, you are not going with the remaining paint. Maybe it is the money I give to you for my project. So what am I going to do in that kind of situation, ma'am?
So that's where resource allocation comes in. You take what you need for your project scope. So if you bought extra based on just wanting to cover yourself, because that's your contingency plan, and you can tell them that yes, you bought it because you wanted to make sure that the quality of the paint remains the same. You didn't want to run out of paint and then now go to the market and the mixed batch may not rhyme. So there was a little extra. So it was your contingency plan. So this is not part of their project. You have met their obligation. This is their deliverable, whether it's 2 coats of paint for the walls and you quoted 2 coats of paint for the wall, you did not quote per gallon of paint. So that would be what you respond to them.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit to this conversation here. I think for a one-man project, yes, you can negotiate with your client and say, yeah, give me extra paint and I will do ABC. But realize when you are working on a bigger project that affects your team. As a matter of fact, I think we said there is no I in team. It's a group of people that are working together. Once there's scope creep, it's going to affect aspects of the project, either again your schedule or your budget or the resources. Which that is why I appreciate the introduction of the validation of that scope, because other people are going to be affected one way or the other. So you want to make sure they agree with you that you can take on this extra negotiation so that it's not just under the table type of agreement. I mean, I can't overemphasize this because we are forgive me for saying this, we are a culture of people that like to do things under the table. Let's negotiate under the table and we do it for you. But the reality is that under the table negotiation can have a bigger impact than we know. So when you have a project team that you are working with, before agreeing with that individual, make sure the rest of the team knows communication and that you have their buy-in, you have their support. So if things are falling apart, you have their support. Otherwise, you are technically on your own. I'm sorry.
True. Any other questions before we move to this? We've talked about this. So the next slide, right? Okay, controlling scope. We've talked a lot about this. So controlling the scope, remember you are monitoring and controlling. So clearly defined scope helps you control the scope of a project and establish a scope validation process. Your WBS is a checklist. It is so important for you to have a checklist. And this is where milestone deliverables also come in. During monitoring and controlling, you are also reviewing your performance based on the milestones. My deliverable is the at 2:00 in the afternoon, the decorator is going to be done. Check. At 4:00 in the afternoon, the DJ is going to be fully set up. Check. So you're making sure that your deliverables are being met. You have to have that checklist. We've also talked about change management as it happens now. For example, your DJ now has an issue and it goes, I've looked at the hall, I came to the hall, I only have 2 equipments, but now that I'm here and I tested the sound, I need 2 more speakers to go in the place. That's already a change in their scope because it's going to need more money. You have to now review, is it beneficial for him to go get these other 2 speakers and the cost that is and the cost impact of it. So that is something else that you should think about during monitoring and controlling. You're going to find that you're making a lot of on-the-spot decision because things are changing. Everything is going. This is not when you're still in on paper mode where you can go back, erase, and redo. You are now in the field. Things are happening. The project is moving along. So there's going to be a lot of on-the-spot decision, on-the-spot changes. There are unforeseen conditions or circumstances that you did not anticipate. This is where your risk register all those things that you had assumed could go wrong, this is when they really start to come alive. So it's now, this is where you have to make sure that you're reviewing your risk register as well against what is happening. In this process, you're also retiring some risk. So some of the things that you anticipated were going to happen after a certain milestone, it did not happen, you can retire that risk. If you had resources allocated to it, so for example, you have said, well, the DJ may need 2 more equipment, 2 more speakers, and that's a risk because the sound will not, the sound here will not be as good. The quality of the sound won't be good in this room. So you've already told the DJ that was a risk that you identified before, and then you have told him to quote if you have to get 2 extra speakers. You've put that amount there. When you now set up and you test the sound and you don't need those 2 extra speakers, you can retire the risk and recover the money. Make sure that that's very important, because when we allocate resources, sometimes we don't go back to check, to cross it out from our risk and then recover the resources that was allocated to it. Does anybody have any question about that? Okay. Project time management, it is the same as scope, where you are managing your time. You also, what have you been able to accomplish within the time that you stated, or your WBS? So if you are you're baking this cake, it's going to take you 1 hour for it to finish baking. You need another hour for it to cool down. You need 2 hours for you to do your decoration. You have to monitor all this. This is part of what you are monitoring. Now, if your cake doesn't cool down within an hour, it's going to affect the time you start your decoration. Is also going to affect the time you deliver. So if you had factored 1 hour in between before you deliver, you may be able to recover it in this time where your cake hasn't cooled down. So you have to make sure that you're monitoring all this and then moving things around. That's part of what monitoring and controlling is. Taking from certain areas to augment some areas that you may be falling short of, and it could be time. I gave an example of the painter. You have 3 painters that are painting the wall. They're supposed to finish in 3 hours because the flooring guy is coming right after them. What happens if the flooring guy doesn't come right? If they don't finish in 3 hours, the flooring guy are going to come, they're going to sit and not do anything, right? Maybe for the next 2 hours. And also, it cuts into the time they were supposed to deliver the floor so that the furniture people can come in and set in their furniture. So all this sequence of activities, as per your WBS, again, you have to check and see where you have to make those adjustments. So during this phase, you are adjusting, you are just moving things around, making adjustments when you need to make adjustments. So you have to understand the schedule. We talked about that, how it influences changes, you adjust, and you make sure that your forecast is per your performance information. Any questions on that? Questions? Okay. So no surprises. Anyone that has worked in project management, your stakeholders, is not only top management. Your stakeholders hate surprises. If they don't want to find out after the fact that, we were not able to finish that parking lot paving because I found a pipe. I found a water main on the site 3 weeks ago. Who did you tell? This was during it. Who did you tell? Who knows that this is the impact to it? So because they are going to be surprised, what happened? I wasn't aware of this. Or in the case of the wedding, you're making all these changes and Burna Boy doesn't know that you've added 50 more people to the list, or that you have grown, the decorators now have expanded to the parking lot. They are now decorating the parking lot. He doesn't know that. You haven't communicated all this to them. So that is where the surprise comes in. Or even what you found on the site. there is nothing you communicate, whether it's in writing, verbally, because you have, remember, you have your communications plan as to who you are going to communicate to, when, and how. So that's why stakeholders on any project do not want to be surprised at the end of the project. Boyega, Charles, anything to add to that?
No, sounds good to me.
Okay.
No, yeah,
Boyega.
surprises are bad. I mean, if I just came and said, hey, we're doing the case study presentations right after this slide, I mean, I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you guys will be ready or not, but that would be a big surprise and change.
Okay, thank you. The same thing with cost management is the same strategy that you're using to manage your cost, your time and your schedule. But in this real time, you've budgeted a certain amount for the cake, for the ingredients of the cake, right? Okay, let's go back to the wedding. You've budgeted a certain amount for the decorators. And so you're making sure that everything is going as planned. But if while they're decorating, they come now and say, oh no, the cost has increased, how are you going to make sure that the work they have done is in alignment with what they are now claiming? This is where you also have to monitor the cost. And on your WBS, you've also estimated the cost. If you are now performing, if your cost performance is much higher than you have anticipated, you have to make the adjustment, whether it's pulling it out of your contingency or out of your reserve, but you have to reconcile during the monitoring. Otherwise, it's going to affect other parts, other tasks that you're going to do. So project cost management includes monitoring cost performance, ensuring that only appropriate project changes are included in a revised cost baseline, and informing project stakeholders of authorized changes to the project that will affect the cost. So this is part of what you are monitoring. We talked about that during scope creep and during management. The output includes work performance information, cost forecast, change requests, project management plan updates, and project document updates. Now, if you have, during your monitoring and controlling, your scope has changed, it may, more than likely, is going to affect your cost. But you have to update that as well in your project management plan. So what you had planned for, remember you have different components. What you had planned for the DJ with 2 speakers is now 4 speakers. Your scope has changed and your cost has changed. So it has to reflect that you paid for these 2 additional speakers and you got the money from the reserve. Is that clear? Okay. Quality management, unfortunately, on a lot of projects, except in IT, quality management is not taken as seriously. It's like, okay, we've started the work. There are no inspection and verification. Inspection for verification. What are you verifying? Like the caterer that is coming to serve food, how have you verified the quality of the food? That's something we don't really think about a lot. We just assume that, okay, this is a good caterer, she's going to come, provide the food service. Have you verified the quality that you signed up for? Did you put that verification process in your contract? The decorator is very easy because you can see, all the things, maybe the pictures they showed or the demonstration that they have, they showed you before, it's per plan. So that's easy. But for the caterer, did you put a verification process or an inspection process in place? Think about that for a minute. That's where a lot of us make those mistakes, because it now becomes whatever she delivers is what we are going to accept. If you never had a chance to review the quality or validate the quality of what she's producing, you didn't inspect, you didn't have like a taste whether when she was cooking, you didn't have someone there to verify or whatever, then what you get is what you get.
Auntie, I just want to, I guess, maybe harp on this a little bit.
Mhm.
I think it was at the beginning of the class, somebody had mentioned about quality and that how come when you have a project manager, we still have building collapses. I know a lot of buildings have collapsed and stuff. So when it comes to quality, there are two things you have to keep in mind. There's inspection, like quality control, where you go into and you test the I think we talked about the cement and the mix and what you do. But then there's also something called quality assurance, which is more like having a strategic plan to make sure you didn't even, I mean, you'll still do the inspections, the trust and verify. So for example, the cake, maybe before you hire the caterer, you can have like, hey, let's discuss a quality assurance plan to ensure that you're going to get the best cake. So maybe you say like, hey, all your flour and your butter, like only use, I'm sorry, I'm talking from California perspective, but only use grass-fed butter, don't use margarine in your cake. All your flour, I know Ms. Adeswa is a baker, I think, but make sure you sieve your flour twice and document it with a picture that you upload, things like that that you can do to make sure the baker is more likely to have a quality cake. And actually, we're talking about cakes, but imagine if you're talking about cement or buildings or stuff like that, some preventative measures to give you confidence. And then when you're in the execution or monitoring and control, maybe you can say is, okay, we're going to sample every slice and taste it before you serve it. Obviously, you want the cake to look good, but when they cut it, we're going to taste and sample 1 out of every 10 cake slices that is delivered to the customers to make sure it meets the quality plan we discussed about for, again, for a cake. I don't know if people do that with cakes, but imagine when you're doing a construction project or your like the EV project. Now, for the IT, I don't know, they probably have a different system. I don't know exactly how they do that, but I know they have to check the codes and
They
make
have the
sure.
beta testing to see what
Yeah.
is performance at different stages. So they test them before, and they use pilot projects. So that's where pilot project comes in, because part of your quality assurance could be your pilot project, right? To see that it works. In construction, like you said, when they are coming to do a concrete pour, they bring the specs, they bring what was mixed in that concrete, and it has to align with what the specification is. You know, the concrete batch, this is what it was, whether it is X amount of gravel versus X amount of cement, water, what is in that mix? You as the project manager, they bring it to you on the site and you review it against the specification. And then when they do the pour, there's also a test, a cylinder test where it has to cure for a certain amount of days. And then when they do the test to make sure that it meets the structural integrity of what was specified. So if the concrete test fails, then they're not going to go to the next phase, which is, if it's the foundation, they are not going to now start erecting columns or anything like that, because the concrete failed. So the quality of that foundation doesn't meet the specification. It's rework. They have to redo that work or find ways to correct it. Imagine if they don't correct it at the foundation stage, they didn't find out that it was the wrong structural integrity for the cement, for the concrete, and then they have moved to now start building. That's where you have all these building collapses, because there was no verification or quality assurance at the very early stage. Is that clear?
Hey, you should always have, if you're managing a project, especially where lives are involved, like, yes, we want to make budget, we want to do it on time, but quality assurance and quality inspections and stuff like that, you need to spend equal amount of time as you are on the schedule, budget, and scope to think about the quality. And you as a project manager, even you, it's going to be the project stakeholder, the sponsor, that's going to have their head in trouble if something like that goes wrong and a building collapses. Yes, the project manager will probably be fired, but it's a project sponsor that is going to jail.
Yes. So we talked.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
In addition, what we've done in California, Yale, which I just experienced recently, I'm trying to pour a foundation. they made me to get a testing engineer, independent of mine, that will come and verify the quality of what we are pouring as foundation.
Yes. Third-party inspection services. Yes. Thank you. So we talked a little bit about resource management. During monitoring and controlling, you're also looking at your resources. Are there areas that are overloaded? So if you have, let's say, and I'm going again to the wedding, you have your laborers, you've brought some people that are going to help clean up. And then you find that inside the room, inside the hall, let's say you've allocated 20 people, cleaners, into the hall. And you come and it's like 6 that are cleaning. The others are standing because there's really nothing for them to do. Do you cut them off at that time to say, okay, here, let me pay you for the 4 hours that you've been here, because maybe it's time and material that you are paying them based on time. Do you cut them off and say, here is your 4 hours, thank you? Or do you move them to another area where they may be needed? Maybe it's in the parking lot, maybe it's in the kitchen. So this is where resource management is very important. During monitoring and controlling, you're moving, as we're moving money around, you're also moving resources around. Your team members, maybe their area of expertise is done on certain phases. Do you just keep them and keep paying them, or do you move them to another project so that they can utilize their time? So this is also, what are some of the tools and techniques that you're using to solve your problems, making sure that you're allocating it to the right place. Okay. The same thing, we've talked a lot about communications plan. You're monitoring and controlling, you're looking at it. Did you communicate that change? How did to the stakeholders? You're monitoring to make sure that everybody's getting the information they need when they need the information. So you're looking at everything. Okay, stakeholders status report, I have given it to them, it's due on the 24th. The draft report is ready on the 22nd. You're looking at that. That's part of what you do during project management or during communications management. Okay. And so stakeholders management, the same thing. You cannot control stakeholders, but you can control their level. Now, do you have, during monitoring and controlling, there were some stakeholders that their involvement was only in the planning phase. Now you don't need them in the execution phase. So have you removed them, or are they still there? How are you engaging them? There are some stakeholders that you needed to engage more in the execution stage. So you must make sure that you're engaging them as needed, and there's clarity on that. So we are almost at the end here. Oh, this one, can't see this one very well. Can you guys see this?
No.
So let me change this slide then, because if you cannot see that, it's not good. What about now?
Yes, better.
Okay. So here, the project risk management, what are you doing during the project risk management? What is that? You're monitoring and controlling risk. We've talked a lot about that. Remember, these are some of the planned risks. You're implementing some of the planned risk. There are some risks that you're going to avoid. There are some risks that you're going to accept that is in the interest of the project. So the ones that you're retiring, the ones that did not happen during your risk management, this is where you are monitoring and controlling it. You're reviewing it. Are there new risks? Was the process you use to mitigate the risk, avoid the risk, or accept the risk, was it effective? And then what are the milestones? You monitor the risk. We talked a lot quite about this. You monitor the risk based on defined milestones and decision making. So this is part of what you do for the risk management. Okay. Procurement management, controlling procurement, process manager of procurement, your relationship, contract performance, and corrective action as needed, and closing out contract. That's what you do during your monitoring and controlling. If you're the guy that came to deliver, let's say, equipment, you had an agreement with him that he's going to deliver the equipment at 2 o'clock. He has come at 2 o'clock. He has delivered his equipment. You've signed off on it. You now know that the next thing for you to do is close out his contract, pay him his money. So that's part of what managing procurement is, project procurement. So we talked a lot about the change request. Now, for example, if the guy was supposed to deliver 100 chairs, and on your contract, your contract says 100 chairs at 2 o'clock, and you've now changed it to 200 chairs. Has your contract been updated to make sure that, yes, you've updated that contract? That's part of your procurement management, and the terms of condition may or may not have changed. The cost probably more than likely changed, but it did not change the time. He's still going to deliver at 2 o'clock. So you are making sure that the terms of the contract remains the same. He's going to deliver when you need it. So what is constructive change order? Does anyone know what constructive change order is? What is constructive change order? Based on, I'm going to give you a minute to read the slide and then tell me what it means to your project. What is constructive change order on your project? The wedding project, the EV charger, what is constructive change order?
I guess let's test the wedding people. If Burna Boy's business manager comes to you and says, hey, in addition to the wedding in Dubai, we also want you to plan a honeymoon in Paris from there. Is that a change order or not?
Constructive.
It's a change order.
But is it a constructive change order?
It's not a constructive change order because it's not written it's not in the first agreement, in the first plan, the scope. It wasn't in the scope, and so we're going to have additional order to it.
But that is why it's constructive, because it doesn't have to be written. It can be oral because the person has authority on the project. So let's use a simpler one. If the guy comes to the venue and he looks at the settings you have and he says, no, I don't want this, change it. I don't like the placement of the tables, rearrange the placement of the tables. That is a constructive change order because it's oral, but he has the authority to request that. But you as the project manager, you have to document it as a written change order. Document when he told you and the action you took, because it's very easy for him to now say, well, I never told you, why is the table like this? Or if it actually costs you additional labor to rearrange, which is more than likely going to cost you to rearrange the tables after you've finished, and you now send the bill for additional labor, it's going to say, how did it happen? I never told you. Say, yes, you did. When you were working at so and so time, I sent you an email after the fact to confirm this. So it is as effective as a written change order, because you're not going to quickly run to your computer to go and do a change order and have him to sign it. It's on the field. But you have other means of making sure that it's documented, whether it's sending a quick text, because it's also valid.
I think and I say not knowing the situation.
For the wedding and the honeymoon in Dubai, is it not different from what you just explained now, talking about the venue change? The Dubai wedding, the Dubai honeymoon, the Dubai wedding is okay, but now asking for a honeymoon outside the Dubai wedding, is it not different from the one of the change in the hall?
That's added scope. That's not a change, right? It's added scope. He did not change so it's added scope. He didn't change the original scope.
So it doesn't come in as what kind of way guys just explained, talking about the Dubai wedding.
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah, it's kind of
Yes,
but my point was that the business manager is an authorized representative, and Burna Boy had delegated. I can't remember the example we gave. I think we said anything under 5 million or something like that. The business manager can make decisions or directions, and then anything above a certain amount, you needed Burna Boy's authority or something like that. I can't remember the amount. But I guess maybe a case study for everybody, going back to the wedding. So let's say you've arranged the tables and a certain way, and it's not the business manager, but the police or somebody, authority comes and says, this is not going to work. You need to put more space between the tables.
it
So
can
that
be
this,
local government, like from the local authority coming to say that there is risk in the
Like
crowd.
fire marshal, like the
Yes.
I
fire
don't know if they
marshal
have fire
comes.
marshals
Fire
in
marshal
Nigeria.
can come, or
Yeah,
there's
the fire
somebody
marshals come.
from the safety in the local government office can come and say this place is too crowded and there is the security risk for the crowd. So you can change the tables from, instead of having 10 people on the tables, it should be changed to 8 people on each
But
table.
who do you think should pay for it? The project manager for not realizing that, the owner, or who should bear that additional cost?
The wedding Burna Boy will pay for the additional, because it's like I look at it as this way, that is the project manager that is going to bear the risk, because he didn't take it into consideration, knowing that the oil may be too small. Maybe he was trying to use the oil for the smaller oil and crowded people into the smaller oil to get away with spending money. And he has been given the money to spend trying to make those things done. But then the project manager should be able to allow coerce with the Burna Boy to let him know that we have more people, we now have space. We don't have enough space for the extra one or whatever, and he's going to pay for more chairs to be taken, or more tables to be rented if we need more tables for it, because the chairs are now more than the tables.
Yep, no, I said that's a good approach. Other couple of approaches is, I said you can't know all the risks. Now you should have if you have enough experience, probably as a project manager, and let's say you know in that area how the authorities handle, maybe you could have documented you don't know how they're going to handle, and they might come at the last moment as a risk, and you probably could have had a contingency budget. Like most owners, when they sign a contract, they don't like coming, and like I said, people don't like surprises. So maybe you could have factored in like a little contingency budget into your plan, like to handle things like that. I think Auntie had mentioned on her project, I don't know if you said Auntie was 10% or 5%, but you should have like 5 to 10% of your total budget.
Minimum 10%.
Oh, minimum 10%. Oh, that's a lot for
10% is, I mean, I've never carried a 5% construction contingency. Where you carry a 5% construction contingency on construction projects, that means it is perfect. Your design is perfect. Everything is just bam. So I'm only just putting that 5% there just in case anything happens. But 10% is a good contingency to have. Some again depends on your level of risk. Could be 15%, could be 20%.
I think for like a wedding, 20% or even probably more like this will probably be a good number, because so many things.
Yes, because things
change.
happen. Yeah, like people will break the caterer's plate. You may need extra security. It could go on and on. I would definitely factor in quite a high percentage. Okay.
Uncle Festus has a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to add, do we also factor in the health and safety when we are accepting a constructive change order, to be able to tell the owner, oh, this is not safe?
Yes, because it says by someone with authority. So it's not only just the project owner, it could be authority having jurisdiction over that project.
So I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Along these lines. Can a scope creep be considered a constructive change request?
Scope creep. Yes. So, for example, if, and I think Boyega used a good one of his projects, constructive change. Okay, so let's use this. The fire marshal comes to the hall. Let's stay with the wedding. The fire marshal comes to the hall and he says, your egress here is not safe. I need you to add lights to the path, or I need you to clear this pathway, or create or build a platform here where people, when they leave the building, they can move to, and I need you to put a canopy in this space so that they are covered from the elements. That's a scope creep because you did not factor that as part of your scope, even though it's constructive change order, but it has increased the scope of the original project.
Wonderful. I like your response. The reason I ask this question is I just want to make sure that our participants are taking into account the seriousness of their assignments, because you are trusted. You are a trusted person, either within your organization or within the corporation that you are working for. They're entrusting you to do a lot of things that you may not be aware of. So yeah, you may not have captured all the risks, and that is very possible. But it's also good to be flexible enough to identify any risk that you may not have accounted for, but make sure that it's fully communicated. That was
one thing I'll add, and I said I spend more time on the business side, and I need some of the work side. But for the entrepreneurs, for the business owners like Uncle Festus, yeah, we're focusing more on the project plan. But for example, in contract, there are also other things that accompany the project plan. So in this case, it's like, as Ati and I have mentioned it, but just from the bigger context, is risk management and all of these unknowns. And some of those things are addressed in your project management plan, but some other things are also addressed in the contract. So maybe now for this wedding, it could be maybe after you guys did your budget and everything, you go to Burna Boy and they say like, okay, everything is fixed. It cannot exceed $5 million. Here's the contract, fix some and stuff. But maybe your contract could be like, hey, we estimate it to be 5 million, but there might be unknowns. If an unknowns happens, we'll meet and negotiate all of this risk. So the project management plan is the most important, one of the important documents, but there are also things like contracts that you can use to allocate the risk. And that's why even as a project manager, when you're identifying all the risks and all those issues logged, you have to give that, and some of those things will go to like the CEO. They're going to be the ones negotiating the contracts and things like that. So if you want to go advanced way for a project manager, if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, project management also goes along with your contract and how you negotiate with your partners.
So does anyone have questions, or has this gotten too technical? This is reality. Any thoughts, any questions?
I have a question. Area of construction, for instance, if there are damages, assuming some items were brought, like maybe glass frames, for the window frames rather, glass window frames, and maybe they were placed in a particular place, and they didn't know there was going to be a storm, and there was a overnight storm, and some of the glasses got broken. Let's say just 2 or 3. Who takes responsibility of that? It's a natural occurrence.
So in the first world, there are insurances for things like that. Now, the project will take responsibility only if they have already accepted it. They have signed off on it, right? If they have signed off on it and said, we've accepted it, and then it's a storm which they call the act of God, has nothing to do with products, manufacturing or warranty or workmanship, then it is the project's cost because they have accepted it and they have signed off on it. And so this is an act of God, has nothing to do with the contractor and their work product or even their workmanship. But if you haven't signed off on it and accepted it as part of the project, because you sign off on these things, right? So you can do a walkthrough after they've done it. This is where inspection and verification also comes in very handy. This is part of your contract. This is what you're also monitoring and controlling. So again, if you have signed up on it and accepted it, the contractor is not on the hook for acts of God, as they call it here. But if you haven't signed off on it, he's expected to give you functional windows with glass that are not broken. So it's on them. They now eat that cost because the act of God is on them, not on you. Go ahead, Quilla.
Thank you very much.
Was that clear, ma? Auntie Adesua,
yes, very clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, very clear.
Okay, thank you. Quilla.
Yes, as a follow-up question, on what you just explained, does that mean that when we are writing our risk register, we should always put like an uncertainty clause there in order to know probably something like that can happen or will happen?
Yes, your contract depends on the scope of work.
Good evening.
The construction contract has those act of God clauses. And what happens? What are the steps to take if an act of God does occur? So your contract will have that stipulation. In the case of the wedding, you may not have that stipulation there because you're not looking for an act of God to happen. But if, for example, rain, the decorator is coming to the site and there is a lot of rain that damage the equipment and damage the things they are bringing, that is not on you. That is on the contractor, even though the rain is an act of God because they haven't brought it to the site. Your contract says delivery to the site, not where you leave your house. So it's the contract, is the decorator that holds the bag for that.
If I may add something, I said construction, I don't know, it's probably the second or third oldest industry in the world. We've been building houses since the cavemen, and there's a body of knowledge of how you build houses. They've documented the lessons learned, and we've learned all over the world, like what can happen, and they have the contract. Now, some people, there's some variation. But for example, for somebody like let's say you're starting a catering company, I think there are like 2 people. The first step is to like start looking at your lessons. Every event is going to be unique, but like doing that lessons learned and risk and the whole idea of a project management office and like your organizational process asset, start documenting what are the things that happen, what are the risks, and you start building up your knowledge base. And then over time, I don't know how many events, you'll start seeing common patterns. And then you can start having approaches and learning. And the more you have that lessons learned, risk logs and stuff, you can start planning like, okay, a wedding this size of 700 people, these are the most likely risks and stuff that's going to happen, whereas a wedding for 50. So you start building up your organizational process assets and things like that. And along the same lines, your company, that you're better able to estimate a contract. So maybe before it will be like time and material, but let's say after you've done like 20, 30, 100 of them, you know everything that's going to happen. You have your assumptions, logs, and everything well defined. You might take a risk like, oh, it's going to be a fixed sum. I guarantee you $5 million. We can do this wedding, no wahala. So that's the whole thing of like having a project management office, taking this assumptions log, documenting everything, going back and look at it, what went well, what went wrong. Is all of you should think about that. Like, it's not just doing one thing, you have to think beyond that and
Oh, wow.
building your
Wow.
business.
Okay. So, chapter summary. Monitoring and controlling involves regularly measuring progress to ensure that the project is meeting its objective and addressing current business need. The project manager and other staff monitor progress. Again, monitor progress against the plans, and you take corrective action when necessary. This is what we've been talking about. Every knowledge area includes processes and outputs. Every knowledge area includes processes and outputs to help monitor and control the project. So in your communications management plan, in your risk management plan, remember we're talking about which risk you have retired, which risk you have accepted, and whether you've returned cost to your project based on that risk that you retired. Outputs common to several knowledge areas include change requests, work performance information, project management plan update, and project document updates. So that could be your status report to your stakeholders at different times, different milestones of the project. You're documenting your milestones. Milestones is very important in every project because it helps you ensure that you're progressing. You're progressing per the goals and objective of the project. Is important because you don't have a lot of rework. You can catch a lot of issues during project milestones. So this brings us to the end, which is the closeout. This is just a few slides. We've done all these things. You're monitoring and controlling. If you don't properly close out a project, the project is not over. Remember, project management, a project is a temporary endeavor taking, and then it has a definite end time. So once the project ends, you officially close it out. And in organizations, it's very important for you to have those closeout, because you can now disband the team and they can go to other things. So common ways to describe or close projects: discuss the process of closing a project, phase performed as part of the project integration management, and also, why is this here? Sorry. Then your acceptance criteria. Remember, you had an acceptance criteria during your project charter, right? This is what you're delivering, this is what they are signing off on, and this is where the project closeout is important. Everyone says, yes, we are happy, we have done it, it meets, here's the sign off, everybody's good, you have your lessons learned, you're moving on to the next phase of the project. So that's what project closeout is. There's a formal way to close out the project, and it's not just like, okay, we are done, everybody's happy, no, you have to make sure that it is formally closed. So we've talked a lot about this, so I'm not going to read the slides to you, we're just going to move. So how do you prepare for closeout? How do you make sure? I tell everyone on my team.
I'll close it. Okay, thank you.
I tell everyone on my team that you prepare for closeout when you start the project. You start closing out the project where you start the project. What does that mean? What does that mean to prepare for closeout where you start the project? Can anyone share with me? So,
hello, ma.
Yes, go ahead, ma.
Okay, like you said, for closeout, you said when we started the project management course, you said every project has a closeout, that each project will come to an end. So I think that is just what it is now, that we are coming to an end of that project. So for the project coming to an end, everything we should take into consideration to look at them. You put the project documents, update everything, then the final project service, you see that the project is okay to be delivered to the project owner, and the final project reports will be presented to the owner to know that this project has been properly done. Then the project should also have the closure of it, just to let us know that we are closing the project. Everything has been taken into consideration from the beginning of the scope to the deliverables and it all. I mean, not use project like managers language, but then.
Hey, Ms. Abiola, just a follow-up question for you.
Mhm.
Why do you think the project, not the project manager, why do you think the project sponsor, like the project manager's boss, would be very interested in the closeout?
Yeah, there is interested in the closeout because that is the point to know if all the planning and everything that has been going on, it's perfect, because they really have to see what you have done to give you a thumb up for your work.
Yeah,
So
that's
If
it. There are
he's getting
many,
his money's worth, if
there are
he's getting
many
his money's
reasons.
worth.
Yeah, there are many
Yes, to get his
reasons.
money worth, the worth of what they have brought out for the project.
Yeah, for the customer's perspective. But one thing that
Yes,
most people overlook from the project sponsor, they want to get paid. They want their money to
they
come
want
into
their
the,
money, yeah.
they want the money, and like
They want their
depending.
money and to see that they're going to get the value of what they've put in.
Yes, so they will want to get paid. And like especially in construction, the subcontractors get paid. Let's say the person delivering the windows, but the general contractor, they get a little bit, but they don't get all their money until they officially follow the closeout phase, which might, let's say in construction, you have what you call a punch list. You have to do all the specs, shop drawings, and all of those things. And those things, most people overlook it and they don't plan properly. So towards the end, most of the project team members have moved on, but then they say like, we're not paying you, you didn't do this little detail, or there's some little defects or punch list you have to do. And that's where a lot of like, oh my God, we forgot this, we're not getting paid, that it will come up during the closeout phase. So that's what you have to plan all of those things from the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Stadiswa has her hand up, so we'll just go through this.
Yeah,
And then we'll
yeah.
take questions
I
at the
think
end.
Okay.
the close up stage. I think it's part of what Wega just said. I think you have to get people to sign. You should have your documents ready for them to sign at each stage once it's completed, when the assignments are completed. That's
Thank
just what I
you.
wanted to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all great answer. And that's what preparing for
Can I-
closeout project document updates. All project documents should be reviewed and marked as final versions. Final product, service, or result transition project sponsors are usually most interested in making sure that the final product, services, or results are delivered. A final project report and presentation are also commonly created during project closeout. During the closing, the project team should update appropriate process assets, especially the lessons learned, because this is what is going to help you on your next project. I know there are a lot of bullet points. Oluwadolapo, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I wanted to just finish this so that we'll take all the questions at the end because of time. So final report, what should be in your final report? When you are creating a final report, the description of the project, your scope objectives, including all the changes, your final scope. Remember, you have revisions because changes have come. So when you're closing your project scope that you started with at the beginning is more than likely going to be different from what you ended up with. So that's why it's important for you to have this closing documents as well. And then your evidence, your quality inspection, your validation, and all those things, whether you mend your schedule objectives or not, and the reasons why you did not. So it changed because of this change order. We got an additional change request that moved us from September, where we were supposed to deliver, to now October, where we are. Or your cost moved from 1 million naira to 2 million naira. This is why. All this must be in your project closeout, because it tells the story of the project from the beginning. You have the beginning, which is your project management plan, and now you have the end. But there is a variation. No project ever starts and ends as planned. unless it's a project made in heaven. So this is why you need to have it. And also it's a business case. It's a business case for, let's use the banks, for example. The bank started up with 5 million, 6 months to develop this app. And in the closing documentation, they found out that it cost 6-7 million, and then it took 8 months. Again, because of permits and all those things. Now, when the bank wants to do another app, are they going to go back to 5 million and 6 months? Are they going to go back to 5 million and 6 months?
No, ma.
Not at all.
Okay, because they already have a benchmark. So you must have a project meeting where you discuss everything about the project. This is also where you celebrate your team for work well done. You guys talk about what you achieved on the project, and it's usually a big thing. It is a big thing. We have a lot of celebration, and we have it. We call it the soft opening. So we, as the project team, maybe we have the closeout meeting at the project site before the official opening. So that's why we call it the soft opening. We get a chance to walk around, take our own pictures before the politicians come and put it in the newspaper. So this is us, because I work for a government. So we do our own soft opening. Plan for project closing. There should be tasks in WBS and resources allocated to closing. So again, if you're just planning for monitoring and controlling and execution, and you're not putting resources into closeout, because there are documents, there's document control, there are still contracts you have to close out, there are bills that you have to pay. Even after the project is over, you still have to plan for that. So I talked about this, that it will be much easier to close the project if the project team captures lessons learned and other important information required for closing as soon as possible. That's what I mean by you start closing out the project when you start the project, because things are happening and you are documenting it towards your closeout. We talked about this, the closeout celebration, thanking your team and having a big celebration and all that.
I think I just quickly add something on the
Yes,
celebration.
please go ahead. It's now open.
We talked about leadership and all that. How do you motivate the team and the next step? And one of the things is people want to be appreciated. I mean, I personally have been on projects where you just finish and you're just like, what next? What do I do? And you just walk away. I'm like, oh, nobody cares about me. I mean, I didn't think that way, but some people now. So if you're a project manager, especially, let's say you're in a company and where people have a choice, it's to show appreciation and bringing everybody together and celebrating them. And you can even go beyond, maybe just write something that will mean something, maybe write a little thank you note or email, or buy them a book, or take everybody out of dinner. But you want to give yourself a good name and let people remember, like, you know what, I enjoyed working with that person, and their next project, I'm going to work with them. I'm not even work with them, I'm going to fight to get on that person's project. So let's say it's in the bank and you're a project manager, you're one of project managers in the banking app division, and you want to have the reputation where all the developers, the marketing department, they want to work on your project. So it's those little things that you do as a project manager that can help. And then also, if you want to grow, like developing the lessons learned and stuff, and being able to communicate to the CEO, like, we estimated 6 months, but it took 8 months, and this is why. For the next project, we're going to know more information. So just some little things like that.
Yeah, and you're using this to build your resume as well. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, on Thursday, I think even though Boyega was not in the class, he reaffirmed what we discussed when he was asking everyone to read that book by Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you all recall, for those who were in class that day, we really emphasized the need to begin with the end in mind. And that's essentially what this is also saying. You see, if you can imagine 6 months from now, the day you kick off your project, you're thinking ahead, what will it be like 6 months from now? And that can be your motivation towards the end. So as you go along the way and you identify the various task owners and who's going to be delivering on certain aspects of the project, the end goal is what's at the back of your mind. And so if the example that Gboyega gave earlier, somebody has dropped out already, the project is over, you still remember who they were as members of your team, because you never know where you will meet again. You might meet on another project. And some people will say, hey, I'd like to work with you because you were a great project manager. And so you want to be that kind of proactive person from the get-go. You are looking ahead, seeing the problems or the possibilities of the problems or none. Maybe you have that kind of a project that doesn't have any issues. And that too is a but it hardly happens. You never finish a project. Sometimes the last 10% are probably the most difficult aspects of the project to manage. And so, either you don't meet the deadlines, the budget gets out of control, but the best project managers I have worked with personally are the ones who are adaptive. They're adaptable, they are flexible. So no matter what comes, they find a way to work around the issues, negotiate, and continue to keep focus on the reason why you are gathered together as a team. So I would just say I wish everyone a successful career in project management. And I'm hoping that right now you can start thinking in your mind, with all these great tools you are getting, why is it that projects in Nigeria don't succeed or they don't deliver what they are supposed to deliver? So I'm hoping that some of you can help fix all those problems. Thank you for this opportunity to have been with you all. It has been a very exciting, interesting, and also to hear the various perspectives. Thank you, Kunje. Gboyega, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And,
I guess it's not over yet. We still have one more week. We're going to.
What are we doing in one more week? It's over. Weeks. I mean, closing. This is the closing. What else are we doing?
The case
they're going to do the presentation of their projects. I know you're going to do
class script.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. It's not over. That's the last class. The case.
Is the celebration, is the graduation ceremony now that is left, right?
Yeah.
So it's for you guys to do presentation, and we are having a big graduation ceremony. But in terms of the lecture series, I know this was very more PMI standard based, but I wanted us to really have that understanding of the PMI standard. Everything you've been learning has been great, but there is a PMI standard that we just wanted you guys to make sure that you had the flavor of. So we want to take questions. We have about 15 minutes to take questions. Yes. So please feel free to ask your questions.
Yes, yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Script.
Go ahead, Iskira.
Yes. Okay. My question is on scope script. Can scope script lead to additional expenses or increased costs?
More than likely it does. More than likely scope creep. Yes, always. More than likely. I don't want to say 100%, but 99%. Yes, there's additional cost of scope creep.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Uncle Festus. Claire, just 1 second. The other team is already here. Claire, give us about 10 minutes. You can stay on and listen to the last of the training. We are glad you joined us. So please feel free to stay on. We are finishing up a class. Go ahead, Uncle Festus.
Yeah. Will you advise us, how do we save all these slides? Are we going to download it into our own system, or are you going to leave this platform? After
we usually leave the platform open so that if anyone has questions, you ask. And then we've been putting this on the platform. So I'm going to put this slide again on the platform. The YouTube, we record it all the time. I send the link, so you have access to all the trainings. And then again, like I said, we leave the platform open. We've left the other platforms open. And you find that after a couple of months, people tend to check out because they've gotten what they want out of it. But we do leave the platform open for you.
Thank you very much. Now we
just
help.
just one last thing. I guess preparing for your presentation, as I mentioned, I'm hosting a presentation workshop on Tuesday. So just to like how to help if any of you have challenges or want some tips on preparing for your presentation. I found a gentleman who's from Cameroon. He teaches public speaking, so he agreed to come and just give you guys some tips on communication and presenting.
I think everyone should take that. Not even just for your presentation is a very good skill set to have. Because when you go for interviews, and I want to leave you with this, the reason why this builds your resume as a project manager, your closing shows where you started from and how you ended. Most people don't pay attention to it, but when you put that as part of a presentation, when you go for an interview and you are able to articulate how you manage challenges on the project to now get you to where you are, it is a win-win. I sit on a lot of interview panels, and those are some of the things that we look for, because it's so easy to talk about project scope, project management, the 5 phases and the knowledge areas. But what is your resume? How can you prove to me that you successfully delivered the project? And that is in your closing, is in your closeout, where you now talked about how you managed your scope, your changes, how you reviewed your budget, how your checklist, how you validated and verified your deliverables at different milestones, and then how your project moved from being a 5-bedroom to a 6-bedroom, how you managed all that. It just demonstrates your skills, that you know what you're talking about, and that you did not get this from ChatGPT or whatever they call it. So that's just my advice to you.
That's our new guarantee.
Just review this and remember you are building your resume. And all these things that we shared with you is skill sets that you will build. We will put this on the platform. If you have time, review it. I'll put this on the platform. The workbooks, the case studies that Gboyega created are excellent. If you haven't had time and you're serious about improving yourself and your skill sets, take time to look at those. There's a lot of effort that went into that. So that's our advice to you. It has been great working with you guys, and then this has just been very fulfilling for me personally, just being able to share some of the knowledge I have gained over the years.
Auntie, there's a question in the chat. It said, I get we have a presentation to do, but the Word template you sent to the group, is it a separate submission?
No, that's the format.
That's for the project plan.
Yes, that's the project man, but you don't have to use that. But it's a good sample. Smartsheet has it as a good sample. If you have something better, use it as a guide. That's why it's a template.
Do you suggest they also create a presentation template like this for their project, or it's just a project management plan?
I think that project management plan is good. You don't need to do another. You don't need to do a PowerPoint presentation. You just work on your project management plan and walk us through it. It's a document that you walk us through.
Okay.
All right. Feel free to stay for Circles of Grace. It's going to be starting in a few minutes. If you are interested, we are talking about spiritual intelligence in finding and living for purpose. It's going to be really exciting today. So feel free to join us if you can.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Pleasure working with you. See you all next week.
Thank you very much, ma. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bye.
There's something I'm going to post to the platform.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
The 7 habits.
Thank you all.
The 7 habits. I'm going to post it. My brother
Yes,
sent it to me.
it was also posted on Thursday. I think Sir Charles posted it. Gboyega also posted it, but please post it again.
Okay. No, there's no need. It will crowd our phone.
No,
It's the book.
okay.
The entire book. It's the entire book.
Okay, the entire book,
Okay.
please post it, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
ma.
All right.
Please
right.
post it, please.
All right.
Thank you, ma. Thank you for everything, ma.
Thank you
God
so
bless you.
much, and God bless you too. So tell
God
us,
continue
and
to
please, I
strengthen you.
asked for something. Let us know where you are from. You can just put it on the chat. If you can do a 30 seconds to 45 seconds video, it's for our management team, for them to hear from you. It also helps us promote unity because we are from different parts of the country, but we've come together as a team and we've successfully worked well together. So we want to use that. If you're interested, please help us out by doing that 30 seconds to 45 seconds video about what this meant to you.
Okay, ma. We will do that, ma.
We really appreciate it if you can.
Okay, we'll do that, ma. Thank you, ma.
All right.
But, sorry, class. What was if it is up to 1 minute now?
It's okay. We'll take it. We'll take 1 minute because some people will do 30 seconds, some people will not do at all. So whatever we get, we'll do. Please make sure it's clear because we are going to put it into format and then I will share it with you guys as well before we post it out. Okay?
Okay,
Pastor
ma.
Funke, thank you for
Thank you.
joining. We are just finishing our class, but please stay on. Glad you could join us today. Do not. So for those of you that want to stay for Circles of Grace, you are very welcome. Otherwise, make sure you attend the class on Tuesday for the presentation. The presentation class. It's public speaking is very important. It's very important to you. It's a skill set that you should have. Okay. All right.
Yes, ma.
Thank you all so much. Mr. Tina, it's so good to have